we have a layer of plastic. This is a shiny plastic. Now we're looking at it at an angle. So once we have that angle, we have to have the depth, that third dimension, because that plastic right now looks like a thin sheet. So I duplicated that layer, offset it ever so slightly, and colorized it differently right there on top. When we're getting close, there's my little edge to the plastic. Turning off that layer, we see that there's the one that's colorized in one way. There's the second one colorized a different way with a little noise added. That added that little edge, which makes it look three-dimensional. On there, we have a bunch of things that are being clipped. We have a little highlight, a little grime. There's a little grime. Another shadow. Here you can even see the maple leaf right there. A little shadow. In this case, it was done with a brown, blurred, and then clipped with that layer. And we have a reflection. Because it is shiny plastic, it's reflective. So this is the layer that we have up here, which I duplicated just like I did with the plastic, offset it and clipped it. Except in this case, I had to do a little modification because we see that the tube is going down to go behind, right? So here it went down and behind. So what I did is I added this little modification here so that it came up to meet the plastic or the tube. Now, I didn't guess at this kind of stuff. I study reality. I looked at a neon sign, and I looked at exactly what was going on so I can recreate the scene and make it look real. So it's just a question of going in there, studying how things work, and then recreating them. Now, Photoshop is a 2D program. Yes, they've added 3D capabilities, but you don't actually model in Photoshop. You can bring in models, but there is no real third dimension here. So the third dimension is created by you based on how you use lights and shadows and the juxtaposition of the objects within the scene, which creates that illusion of the third dimension. So here, since it's going down closer to the reflected surface, the reflection is coming up. If you got a picture of me and I'm looking in a mirror, you take me and do a flip horizontal, perfect reflection. But if I'm holding the mirror here, you can't do a flip vertical, because in this kind of a situation, you would see the bottom of my chin, the bottom of my nose. So I'd have to go in there and modify that image slightly to make it look like a true reflection, which is what I did here. And let's turn this guy off, come back down here. Okay, then we have a little link right here. That little tiny, see that little edge right there? That's all that is. That layer was reduced in fill and opacity until I got it just the way I wanted it. Being in a layer, it gave me the ability to go in there and modify it until I had it exactly the way I want it. There's a little shadows, a little rust, and a wire holder reflection. Now the wire holder is these guys up here. There they are. Now they came in as whole pieces because they were created somewhere else. They were created in a separate file of their own. Now, what I did for the reflection is I just went in there and I cut it right here, took this piece and did a 180 on it and put it in back. And let's turn on the reflection. There, see it's cut right there. That piece was brought back here, reduced in opacity, so when you see it in context, it becomes a reflection. Okay? Then we got the little screws, a little grime, and here's another reflection coming up. I got these neon connectors here. These are where the neon tubes are going into the sign. I duplicated them, reduced their opacity, and offset them slightly so they became the reflection that we see there. When we see them together with the tube, there's a little edge right there. See? A little rust somewhere. Tube link. Now, the tube link is because we don't have that third dimension. When we turn on the tubes, there they're going in, underneath, and behind. Tube there. See, turn that off, and it just breaks off in the middle of nowhere. Turning that on, it becomes one continuous tube going behind and into the sign. So again, that third dimension, that spatial relationship was established by two different layers, but you see it as one continuous tube. Now, these pieces here are plastic. Being plastic, they'd be shiny, and that means they're reflective. So the tubes are on, so I have a little reflection right there on the rims and on the edges. There's the tubes themselves, which have an inner glow and a bevel and emboss to give it that nice little shading there. Now I have another, here's a paint, right there's a little paint. You see it up here, there's the paint. It's chipped away because it's an old sign. And then I have an inner glow. See how this tube got light? And this over here? Even though the neon layer has an inner glow assigned to it, I added another layer which has an additional glow because it's an old sign. And if you look at an old neon sign, the light is not consistent all the way through. So the second inner glow, I erased in certain areas so that it wouldn't be one continuous glow. So when I turn this on and off, you'll see that this part will get bright, this part will get bright, but this part will not. See? Because this is an older part of the sign and so on, so the gas hasn't gone all the way through and lighting up. Then we got a little dirt, and we got the little wire shadows, and then finally the little wires that hold the neon in place. See? So everything was in its own separate layer.